Well, a very warm welcome along to G&T Sips and Giggles with me, Glenn.
And me, Miss Tina Legs Tantrum.
Well, how are you? How are you, Miss Tantrum? How have you been?
Hold up one wee second. Hold on. Get a temperature gauge in here because this studio is about to explode.
Do you need me to open a window or?
No, because it's not only is there like your personality, my personality, there's another personality in this room in our wee studio. Here live at the Sips and Giggles podcast.
Who is it?
The one and the only. Trudy, Anne Marie, Sarah Jessica Parker, Scrumptious!
Yay! Hello, Trudy. Welcome to the studio.
She's here. She's live on Channel 4. Don't say fucker bugger. Hiya.
So delighted to have you here, Trudy.
Welcome.
You're looking fabulous, by the way. This has got to be the gayest house that I've had in here in a while. I bet you my neighbours are wondering why there are two glorious, fabulous women walking through the door.
Yeah, like they don't say that every day. There's them too.
And that's just Glenn and Mark.
That's so true.
No, they know we're here. Sean Paul go 10 poppers.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Trudy, you do look divine, darling.
Oh, thank you very much,
It's
my
been
love.
it's been
Thank
a
you.
year. It's been a long time from you and I've sat down and had a quarrel chin wag, love, hasn't it?
It's been 2 weeks when I've seen you outside the street. But yeah.
Because you were in, I didn't know you were in court the same day as me.
Yeah.
See her, honest to gosh, never out of here. Her. Every time I'm down here, she's down here.
It was very court, regal filters.
Oh god, how have you been, Trudy?
Good. Life's been good. Kind of crazy from summer and Pride and all of that. Then it was in Adele, and then it was doing Night of a Thousand Madonnas.
Heard.
And yeah, so just a lot of things back to
for you, love.
back. I took
Brilliant.
myself off to Torremolinos, booked it on Saturday and went on the Monday. It was
Good for
delightful.
you. I love that.
Yeah, it was great.
I love a spontaneous drag queen gay. Where's my clutch? Why were you going Torremolinos?
Yeah.
Normal folks say Tesco. Trudy's like Torremolinos.
Do you know when you just don't stop though sometimes and you just need days to decompress? I needed to be out of my environment because if I'd have sat in the house I would have found something else to do. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't able to switch off, so I was like, off she goes.
Well,
I'm away to get away, and let's face it, we didn't have a fucking day of summer. So it was like, somebody tan my tits immediately, please.
To be fair, that's kind of the conversation that we always start with. Is like how shit the weather's been. Although it's been fabulous of recently. But look, we are short for time because we have a lot to talk about. The purpose of today's episode is to actually take a walk down memory lane. So we get lots of feedback, Trudy, about our podcast that people love hearing the stories about the good old days in Belfast, particularly in the bars. So there's a lot of nostalgia that people feel listening to our podcast about things, you know, when Tina would do her dance school or the likes of the Sunday Bingo show, which is actually the reason why we've invited you along today. So we've got a lot to unpack. And not enough time. So what we might end up having to do, because these two bitches do like to talk, so we might end up
Can
having
I
to
set you a challenge? Count how many times we go off topic.
believe me. I've literally just listened to 2 minutes of off topic, believe me.
we covered Tesco, Torremolinos.
So ye olden days and ye oldie gays. That's what we're on, right? Okay.
Insert harpsichordy kind of music there. Anyway, so we are going to talk about Sunday Bingo show, and we probably will end up splitting this over 2 episodes because there is, I mean, well, I don't know if I could stretch. Miss Legs is putting her hand up for the people that can't see. She's putting her hand up, going maybe over 3. I don't know if I could be
gay
talking.
wave.
Is that what it was?
Have you seen your man on the old Irish TV show and he has his waves broke and he's in the car and he's like that? That is my new thing. I'm obsessed with it. Even if nobody waves at me, I'm just like that in the car.
Spot the gays and the limp
Like
wrists.
Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. It's broke. Mine's is broke. It's broke. Oh, it's this way.
So look, we have
binoculars?
to get to it.
Okay,
so
sorry.
I'm
That's
going to
hard.
be I'm going to ask the questions. Okay,
Yes.
or you have?
Well, I'm going to make them up as I go
Okay,
along.
that's fine. That's okay. Okay.
Shocker.
Always ready. Always ready.
Okay, so the very first thing we need to know is what, if you were to describe it to somebody who's never been. So let's talk about the people that are listening to our podcast now that weren't around 10 years ago on the scene. Trudy, how would you describe the Sunday Bingo show?
Well, I would describe it as an international event because very quickly I think it was just three queens that had a dream to make some magic happen and kind of change the landscape of the city with overt queerness.
It really was. And for me, the one word in my mind there was magical.
You know, as a customer, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
Like, we were totally in awe of it when it started. How did it start, by the way? Because that's something that perhaps maybe people won't really remember.
It happened. It was the best accident that ever happened, but it took the three of us to make it work.
Yeah.
Because I was dabbling in drag, and then I said to Trudy one night in the Groovy Train, because we worked as dancers.
This was my audition for the Groovy Train. So we were having an interview about me dancing in the Groovy Train, and she was like, "Have you ever done drag? Come on, girl, tell me everything." And I was like,
"Hey, girl."
I was like, "Well," she was like, "What would your name be?" And I said, "Trudy Scrumptious," because I had been discussing it with my young gay friends. I was always
that was the name.
Obsessed with like Danny LaRue or Lily Savage growing up as a kid. So whenever I started to realise it was gay, it was going to gay bars, and I hadn't really seen drag. I hadn't even seen you. There was nobody really doing it, or at least the times that I was about. So I kind of then was like, I would love to do it. I was kind of willfully bringing it into existence, but hadn't. And then the Groovy Train was that moment. So it was like 2 weeks later, I was down doing a Saturday night slot with you in the Parliament.
And back then, it was just a bit of drag, and we were so happy. And this is how happy we were.
I love you, but it was never just a bit of drag. Because you and I had a hunger that was ferocious to make shit happen. Like,
and the thing about it was, we never had what the kids have now. There was no YouTube. There was no going on and joining the dots and learning. And well, I certainly didn't. But we were a good comfort blanket for each other because Trudy is chalk, Tina is definitely cheese. You were like silk, I was like steel. But for some strange reason, our drag really, really worked and still does. And then Trudy said to me, I said to Trudy, imagine if we had a wee show. Like our own show, because we were doing bits. We used to get wee routines that we done in the Groovy Train, and me and her would have done a couple of wee numbers, solo numbers each, and then we would have had like a dance routine. And I said to Trudy, wouldn't it be great if we had a wee show, me and you? And you said, well, I have a friend called Marcus, and he's called Lady Portia de Monte.
Yeah.
And I went, perfect.
So what had happened there was I was forever a first year student in many different courses, because I left Ballyclare High School and I was like, I want to do photography, and then I wanted to do social studies, and then I ended up on the fashion course, which is what I really wanted to do, but I was telling myself no. I ended up on the fashion course, but in the process of all that, I was around every tech in the city in different buildings. Came across, had a lot of friends from doing musical theatre shows, and they were all studying over in East Belfast, and I bumped into Marcus through them. Strike to us going out and getting dressed up and playing around with it. But I hadn't actually. Marcus had at that stage. The first time I had done drag was with Emmanuel McStravick in Moira, and it was Rocky Horror. The next time I done drag, that was Trudy Scrumptious with you on the Saturday night.
That's right.
And then we had done, I think it was around Halloween for sure.
It was.
Downstairs in the Parliament Bar, and we played off cassette tape.
Well,
where they held a microphone to the speaker.
Yes, so actually it's very funny you mentioned that. We talked about this a while back on one of your very first performances. But
that's right.
This actually came up. We had a listener write into us. It's unrelated to this episode, but we did have a listener write in to actually say that they specifically remembered you guys coming down with cassettes, and at that time they didn't have any way to play the cassettes, and all the solution was to get a ghetto blaster, which for our younger listeners is the equivalent of a portable CD player that you put cassettes in. And he had mentioned that he had to hold the microphone basically to the actual speaker. So we're going back quite a bit here.
Yeah, because one of the numbers that we did was Little Shop of Horrors.
That's right. I remember doing Annie as one of my first ones, and I'd done Liza Minnelli, and I think it was Liza that nobody had mapped the stage, and I completely went cock-a-hoop in one of my first songs Saturday night. But I remember, it's so funny because it's so long ago, but once you start talking, you remember. I remember the lights, the sound, the smell, what it was like in that space.
Yeah.
And it's only now with so much distance and time when you really think we really were like just trying to make it happen. Imagine now saying to a drag queen, you're playing off cassette and we're going to hold the mic to the thing. Like you'd be laughed out of the place.
And you'll probably slip and fall because nobody's going to clean if they spill drinks. And by the way, everybody's going to smoke. Yeah. So you're going to be blinded with smoke. You probably won't be able to breathe. Your costumes are going to absolutely stink. They will be rank. Oh, and by the way, you'll get a tenner.
It's hard to sort of remember a time before 2007, isn't it? Whenever you could smoke everywhere, and that was sort of like your default stench after a night out was smoky clothes. But I'm thinking more about how did the Sunday Bingo show come to be in Union Street Bar?
This is where I was going with the whole with Portia. So
as I was saying, I just to put us back where we were, I think we done the first like from October right through to January, and then it was very much then they wanted a Sunday slot, and that's whenever Portia came on.
And then we got together and we were downstairs in the Parliament, and we had a tiny wee piece of chipboard for a stage. Do you remember? And we used to go and get changed in the kitchen, and we done like 6 numbers each. And my ex-partner at the time, he was the DJ. From 10 people of an audience, this is how the whole thing began. So we started it together. We had such good fun. I've got videos.
You had sent me a disc before.
Swear to God. And when you look back and you think of how happy we were, I swear we would have scared the paramilitaries. and I would have certainly anyway. And then what happened was, all of a sudden, do you know what happened? I think this is one of the key things that made it, that had that thing that, you know, there's a certain show or a certain, when there's something on TV and they do this thing as a gig. The ladies of the Horror Man recording we're just
Rolf Harris wasn't it that done that?
Controversially,
Controversial. So we started doing that routine and we got it down to a T.
And the other one we done too, we used to do it around the old campfire.
It's the old campfire, so we did. So then the show got so busy they brought us upstairs in the Parliament.
That was within 2 weeks. Yeah. So we literally done a show twice downstairs. And again, this is going back to that thing of it wasn't just drag, it was the non-stoppable force of us wanting more and claiming more space. We were told no a million times, we were given problems a million times, but we had always a solution, and we were absolutely winging it on a prayer. But it was like, no, this is happening. Like, it was an unstoppable force when we were together. You couldn't
stop the three of us because the three of us were so united and we were so passionate about it, and we knew we were creating something. We weren't quite sure what that was. So then we went upstairs in the Parliament, and I think at that stage what we didn't know was they were selling it, and the new owners were coming in. So, and we had got it to such a point that it was packed upstairs.
Yeah.
That was so good. There was no fault with the show. And Granny D had come on board because
this is like a year or two later though, isn't it?
Because then my ex-partner wasn't my ex-partner in the beginning, but then he became my ex-partner. So then Granny D came in, and he was brilliant, and he was camp and the big glitter and he loved it. It was right up his alley, like so. Yeah, and he was such a wonderful enhancement to it.
But once you took it upstage, there was an old stage, or a big stage upstairs in the old Parliament Club, so it almost straight away gave the show a theatricality. And because it just had never existed, drag cabaret in Belfast, it was like how nobody was ever going to foresee that it would work.
Yeah.
But we just knew that we wanted to try it, and then it became a full massive club room they were shipping in their chairs and their tables. There was dragony on from day dot.
Yeah.
It was like a fully formed idea for pretty much from the outset, you know, and we were totally flying by the seat of our pants. But
yeah, we were, and it just worked for some strange reason. It just completely and utterly worked. And then I think when I look back at some of the footage, and one of the things I laugh at, because we didn't even have a dressing room. It was a cloakroom. And we done our makeup and our nails and they're on an ironing board.
I always remember. It's such
that?
a strong vision of her sitting with an ironing board, putting her breasts on nails. You know. And the thing was she put her on her nails, right, and it stuck on these big rings that covered every digit on her hand. So I was like, why is she gluing nails on? Because like the jewellery is like literally Ernest and Jones jewelers, right, on all of it on her hands. You know?
Was like a satellite dish covered in DeMontes on each hand. I swear to God, you could have got Sky Sports on my right hand and you could have got Paramount TV on the left.
But you knew the nails were there.
The nails were there somewhere underneath the chubbiness.
Yeah.
So they were.
So the Parliament was sold.
Yeah.
It became Cube.
Yeah.
They tried to turn it straight, didn't work.
Yeah.
So you guys ended up disbanding, or?
Well, what happened
There was a whole shift then because
Yeah.
Tina and I ended up doing a club drag cabaret act with Emmanuel McStravick.
We
There
did.
was more dancing and things like that. And I can't even remember. I remember Portia was doing something else at the time too. But then there was a shift with, I was doing the Kremlin and then I went to Mint.
You went to Mint, and then what happened was because they tried to do the straight thing and it didn't work.
Correct.
Right.
So then myself, Emmanuel and Trudy had this wee cabaret travelling around show. We done a couple of gigs and it worked so well. So then Cube went to Mint. So then they said, right, Trudy, would you like to come on board? Now
I was kind of cornered and tricked, and I was very young.
And
tricked
Trudy
into
was like,
a one-stop place.
we're going to give you a stage and we're going to give you lights and we're going to give you red carpet and all this. And it was like, right, okay. And off she went. And then I was like standing, and then I got a phone call to say, would you like to come to Union Street? Yeah. Because then Teddy left Kremlin.
Teddy and I were put in the same position where
you two went round to Mint. And I thought, oh my God, I'm actually working in Union Street.
Yeah.
And this was the very first night that I was working with Robert Brown on a Sunday.
Yes.
Teddy used to do the bingo on a Sunday.
That was Teddy's ball busting bingo, wasn't it?
That was it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll never forget Jake saying, me and Robert were doing and I actually found it quite intimidating because he was relying on me. Mm-hmm. Doing the banter, and my banter is stories and crack and oh mommy really here, and Teddy goes for the jugular about bodily fluids and functions,
different types of humour, and the expectation of that,
and people were all there for Teddy, and I was stood there, and I swear I looked like Miss Peggy. I had this pink fleshy dress on and a big hair wig, but I done it, and Jake says to me, not once. And I was like, what? He says, not once did I hear the word F or C or mention genitalia. And I was like, oh, right, it's all she ever says. And I was like, oh, right, okay, that's fine. So that night was fine. That was my first night. And that was the first time I ever met Edie McClay.
Yeah.
And then this is how the Sunday Bingo show happened. So then Trudy...
Portia was back
round with me
in that period of a year and a half, 2 years. Shit had hit the fan, and I didn't want to work a Mint anymore. So I bumped into Portia one night, and Portia was like, "I think it would be great if we were all around in Union Street." And here's me, I do too. Like, make it happen now because I'm not. I felt like because I wasn't of my own doing, it was kind of manipulated around into his place. I felt it would be cheeky to then go, hey, want me back? Like, so I wasn't willing to think. So that was mentioned, and then within a week, I was around with
She was around.
And I remember your very first performance. You done Kelly Clarkson Since You've Been Gone.
Right.
And I think that was the very first time I'd properly seen you perform, because up until now, we had never really went to Mint. We had only ever been round in Kremlin and Union Street. So we'd seen both Tina and Portia, but we'd never really seen Trudy perform.
Yes.
And that is etched in my memory. And I just remember thinking, like, this is like a weird sort of trio that just works.
Yeah.
And of course, and I would never seen any of your shows in the Parliament because I was too young and I was, wasn't around in those days. But
Never stopped me. I was in.
Well, I actually wasn't in Belfast. I was living in Dumfries at the time. I wasn't. Belfast wasn't even in my foresight at that point.
Yeah.
But I remember your very first performance that totally stood out.
It was up on the YouTube still recently.
It's still on the old YouTube,
It's on
so
the
it is.
YouTube
I think it's probably my channel as well.
You probably, yeah. Well, that was the thing that you done. It was a big element of it too. It was like having somebody there recording the video. But to be fair, it was always there because that footage was always somebody recording on. I remember that big yellow camera.
Mine?
Yeah.
Because I took it with me everywhere.
Canary
Thank
yellow.
God I did. And then me and you used to do Monday nights in Milk.
Yeah.
So I did. And we used to do duets. And Pat used to say, and do you, Trudy, do you and Tina want to do a wee turn? And we'd be standing there at 1 o'clock in the morning, ready to go down and do a wee performance, because it was another isolated, independent gay night out, and it used to be unbelievable.
Yeah.
But going back to the Sunday Bingo show, so we obviously, although we went our separate ways, and then Portia and I were working together on a Sunday night with Robert Brown, and I went to Eddie and said, well, we used to do this wee show around in the Parliament. What was it? And I was like, well, it was called Gay Your Cards, right? And tell me about it. So I told him. And then he had said about contacting you. And then you came round. And then the three of us done the exact same format that we did in the Parliament. And what we didn't know, what we were quite naive about, was they were sitting like Simon Cowell going ka-ching, ka-ching.
Yeah.
By there you mean the bar? You mean you're talking about the
The old
bar?
owners,
Okay.
Seamus and Andre.
Yeah.
Because they had been around Europe and seen a lot of different things in their sort of insight into Union Street and what Kremlin was going to be.
Yeah.
They knew what we could do from Kremlin, but because Union Street was relatively new, they could foresee how that would become like a proper gay bar with drag entertainment on it on a weekly night basis, you know. So that was the very first idea with it and with Union Street. And again, it was a similar scenario. We were on in Union Street for like a couple of weeks, and they were like, okay, we need a bigger stage.
So they bought the building next door, which was the old shoe factory. And then it literally it was built within 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And then we went from Union, because Union Street just filled when we were there. It was myself, Trudy, Portia, Robert Brown. And then when we went into the shoe factory, and they asked for Granny D, and he came on board.
I think Robert went on to do Bear Force One or something around that time.
Oh, yes.
But I do remember in the early days of the Sunday Bingo show, he was on and up in that DJ box. It used to be above the fire escape. But again, it was very much that it had its own momentum, and there just seemed to be magic with the three of us that used to be. I mean, there's been theses that have been written about, I'm not even joking, about people that seen the show and sort of the dichotomy of having a Catholic, a Protestant, and a posh bitch beside each other really broke down the bigger culture of Northern Ireland at the time.
That was the undertone that stands out. For me, it was the personas that you guys were projecting, and you literally covered everybody. You covered all personality types from either side of the divides, and then there was somebody, because I mean I don't really fall into either side of that divide, but then I wouldn't necessarily associate myself with being from North Down and dead posh like Portia did. But you guys had sort of like, you had covered an entire cross section of the community, and that's what was so, for me anyway, as a customer, was so unique. Your personalities. Just the way that, you know, Tina was the Millie bitch, you were Trudy was the alternative one from Rathcoole, and Portia was just too posh, you know,
too posh for her own good. But those three elements,
she was living her live, laugh, love fantasy.
I think it was the kind of sort of the invisible magic dust that made it work, because you had to get inside Trudy's head to understand Trudy's drag. Mine's was easy to understand, you know what I mean? And Portia's was sometimes so trying that, you know what I mean? And it just made the three of us giggle and laugh at each other. And this is what we experienced through the years of doing the show together, that this is how different we are, but look how it can work. And I think I would like to touch on this and then swiftly move on, is like, you don't ever see that anymore. It's so much the same now. It's so much the same. Where's the individuality?
We talk about this quite a lot, don't we? Well, I certainly do. I talk about how I feel the sort of the art of drag is very one note now, with the exception of a lot of like yourselves, your standout season queens, but certainly a lot of the kids now, because of the likes of Drag Race, Drag Race has sort of almost perpetuated this idea that lip syncing on stage is all it takes to be a queen. When I've lived through that time of, you weren't just lip syncing, you were doing comedy routines, you were singing live, you were having, you were having that crack and banter, you were talking on the mic, looking great and pushing boundaries. That's something which I feel perhaps you don't see enough of today. It's not to say it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that at all, but
I think nowadays with the young ones, like, it's very much, they obviously, for back in that era of what we're talking about, you had to go out because there was no representation. If there was, it was Lily Savage probably at the time. Other than that, but you had to go out to really experience it and live it in your town. And I think we were the kind of first example of that in that sort of performing cabaret space. But also, we were kind of forged in the fires because we didn't have internet. We had to find wigs. We had to try and make, not even that we could really look at imagery to find. So we were really crafting your own image out of what was inside of you or what was inspiring you. And, for me, it was like I was taking influences from a fashion and Sarah Jessica Parker and Sex and the City and all those kind of quirky female
and
people.
My role model was Paul O'Grady, Lily Savage. I mean, the big hair and the grotesque jewelry and the heavy makeup, but the mouthy character. And I always loved having that association with having that big dollop of backstreet earthiness about Tina. Do you know what I mean? But what we had, I think, was our drag was, we didn't know any better because we had to make do. We had nowhere to turn. There was no.
But I think that instantly, that experience, that's why I wouldn't change it for a thing.
No, near would I.
I feel like it makes you more unique.
Absolutely.
But do you feel that because of having developed and really sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? You've developed your craft during that period where you didn't have the same resources. It really was survival of the fittest, shall we say. There weren't many queens. You had to be a cut above. You needed to be that triple threat, whereas now there's so many places that kids can go to, the open stages and so on, which didn't exist back in those days. And again, we talked about this before, Tina. That there weren't that many people trying to do drag back then because you had to know your shit.
Like drag back then, it was very much like if you done drag, you wouldn't have got the ride.
No, actually, that's a very good point as well.
It was very much. He's a drag queen. They loved you, they adored you, they wanted to be your friend, but would they even consider that you had genitalia? You were like a Barbie doll.
Honest to God,
But so it's hard to, when you really talk about it all in context now, because things have changed so much. But I do think that, like you say, there's a uniqueness built in that era that, and I think I would like to see, I've chatted to some of the queens that, have watched Drag Race and from they were kids and they're now adults and they want to do drag. And I think it's like, well, that's great. Like, look at that. And there's some great things to be taken from it, but also forge your own. It's like, imagine drag's art to me. So if you're going to be a painter, are you a Monet or a Picasso or a Roy Lichtenstein? What are you doing with your own paintbrush? Do you know what I mean?
You've got to create your own. You have to have your own substance, and you can't always look back at something that's either on television or it's in your phone or relying on someone to tell you how they think you should be. Because if you're going to develop something, not just drag, but something that you want to love, there has to be that substance in the pit of your stomach. You've got your Trudy button, I've got my Tina button, Teddy has her Teddy button. And when everything goes a bit ski-whiff, you kind of just, there's times that's the point I'm trying to make. Do you ever get the times, Trudy, when you're going to do a show and you just cannot be annoyed? And all of a sudden you put your lashes on, you put your wig on, you get your shoes and all on, and you are feeling like crap. And the minute you step out and you put that microphone to your mouth, you're the funniest fucker on 2 feet.
Sometimes a wee bit of bitterness in your show helps.
But
you bastards made me get dressed up like this, so you're fucking getting it. Yeah.
And that's that drag queen button. But you gotta have that substance. within your own uniqueness as you grow, especially if you're going to be a drag queen, and you shouldn't really rely as heavily as what the kids rely on these days, because you may look at Bob the drag queen, you may look at Bianca Del Rio, you may look at
Trudy
Jinx
Scrumptious.
Monsoon and think, that's what I want. But they don't realise the hard work, effort, blood, sweat and tears that goes on to get to that stage.
Yeah.
Which is, for us, we had 20 odd years of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To build our own wee platforms without social media and without RuPaul's fucking drag race.
But there's a robustness, like you saying, or it's just drag, and I was like, no, it's ferociousness that really got to that. Because the amount of times we were told no, the amount, if you really look back on it, and it didn't exist. Nobody was willing to even give it a try until we just perpetually ground them down, or basically said, we don't care, we're going to show up and do a show anyway. Do you know, like, it's just that persistence with it, especially for us, because it had never existed here before. So, and also then when you're really in the middle of the show, like, you get what you want and then you go, okay, I'm going to have to figure this out now. Yeah. And you take it to the next level, and then it's where we're thinking about the Sunday Bingo show and how do we then start to make creative performances and unique things happen with very little, with never really seeing this. Yeah. Like, just bouncing ideas off each other and going, well, I'm going to do this, and a wee bit of competitiveness too helps.
There's always that on,
Did you like collaborate in when you were sort of coming up with your performances? You know, what was that creative process? For example, would you guys just turn up on a Sunday and say, "I've been working on this," or would you guys sort of work as a bit of a collective?
We always used to meet on a Wednesday and rehearse, and our creativity and our comedy and our wit, we shared that quite equally, because the opening number and the closing number were always brand new. Yeah. And we always shared costumes and comedies and face expressions. The best one I will ever always remember is, do you remember Cats? And your man, the Scottish DJ, scraped the CD and I was going to kick a fuck out of him.
Oh,
do you remember?
God.
I had to be escorted off the stage.
It takes a lot for my arsehole to tighten now. But like, her having a moment where I was like, you better, somebody get security to the DJ box, because she's going to scale that wall and kick every last bit of him. He had written on the CD with a barrow, which then instantly affects the data on the CD, but obviously he didn't know that. And it was through the first part of the song, and then it went into another part and it skipped and stopped, and we're all dressed as fucking cats. I'm going to say dressed as cats. I mean, we stuck bits of fur and found tails and ears. And Portia had a tin of stewed steak that she had put a Whiskas thing around it, and she was opening it. And we got to this point every time. And then the next thing was, I think it was before your solo was to come out. Yeah. And every come out, because it was her part that was pausing, we could see her going, "I'm not fucking right." So the face was making, we could look in her eyes after working.
Because I still have it in the house, in the loft. Do you remember we called it the Bible? It was a case of CDs I bought from the Ultra Glam Girls, and I bought them on eBay, and those mixes were the savior, because we always had these fresh, really good mixes. And when there was a ladder that used to go up to the DJ box in the Shoe Factory, do you remember, at the side? And our dressing room, this goes to show you how tough it was at the side of the stage, and it was 2 bits of curtains and 3 big step ladders and 1 wee light.
Yeah. Can I just say, the curtains weren't even curtains.
No.
The curtains were bits of painted wood.
Yeah. The curtains for the dress the stage were painted
sorry,
MDF.
Well, that was, but I mean, like, the ones beside the stage.
The curtains that we had that covered that corner was black fabric. Let's get that right as well.
And that's what we had to work with for a very, very long time. Yeah. So I leant up the ladder. You
can actually see it in one of the videos, that thing. I came out from behind it.
Yeah. And I leant up the ladder and I was, what's wrong with CD? And I don't know who it was.
It was the third time, and then we gave up the ghost and we done coffee as cats. And
a tin of stewed steak.
The DJ then was doing her curtain call on her bows, and Portia went out, bum bum bum. I went out, bum bum bum. Tina walked out as a cat and flipped the fingers at him and walked right past the stage. And me and Portia were just like, what do we do?
Because I had just moments before I had just found out. I was like, what happened to that CD? after we had done coffee, and they went, "Oh, he wrote on the CD," and I went, "What do you mean he scraped up with?" There's a pen, a fucking pen, a fucking pen. Give it up for Tina Legs Tantrum, and I went, I said, "No, you see, you, fuck you."
Up to the DJ box, the whole audience clapping and then going, "Oh, she's gonna kick off." Oh, fuck.
Everybody was diving behind the bar and climbing under their tables.
But it's hysterical. Like, you've no idea what these cat costumes like. I got like a pelt of fake fur.
Oh,
and wore this skirt over a black leotard and very big covers in the cat ear. It was so funny.
So good.
My Drew whiskers on. Like, I'm a sexy cat.
So, tell me though, what was the dynamic like between performers, particularly between you guys behind the scenes?
We all had a laugh.
Yeah.
Were there any kind of, so if we talk quite a lot about Drags to Riches, you kind of do your pre-show prayer with the girls and so on. Did you guys have any kind of traditions or rituals that you followed before you went on stage? What was the kind of dynamic like backstage as well?
We always done the prayer.
In rehearsals, we kind of, as we say, we flashed out ideas and sort of we always kind of knew where direction we were going with the opener and closer, but our solos we would kind of talk and bounce ideas off each other and then go and develop them and come back on the Sunday with them. But like for the show then on the Sunday, we'd all sort of arrive maybe an hour and a bit, 2 hours before, and run through our numbers, run through our lights,
and talking the microphone and which microphone you were on, and the stools, the high stools, the agony aunt. We actually were. The whole thing was. It was so well executed because we were so committed to it, and it just worked. That's the reason why it worked, because the passion we had from when it was a bit of MDMF for a stage round in the Parliament, getting changed in the kitchen. 2 weeks later, we were upstairs, massive big stage. They didn't know what to do because they didn't think that was going to work. It went from Cube, it went from Mint. I went with Portia, we went to Union Street. Then you came round, and all of a sudden we were sitting with microphones. And we were the hub.
A spotlight, a stage built for us. You know, they really start, because they never really used Shoe Factory as a space. And then all of a sudden, it was one of their, if not their busiest night of the week.
Yeah.
Again, back then it was like hairdressers didn't work on a Monday, so they were all out.
Yeah.
And it became very much an international audience. When I said that at the start, I wasn't joking. Like, we had a prince from Spain in one night. Not that any of us knew who the fuck he was.
Yeah.
But we were told, and
he was my ex-boyfriend. Carlos.
Jesus.
Jesus.
But you know, you had people from all over the world, like Americans, coming in and saying that we have never seen anything like this, and
then and we had the BBC down, and we had lots of different program makers and journalists, because what we didn't realize we were doing this. Myself, Trudy, and Portia, through our show, we were pioneers of not only drag, not only of our gay community, because there was no LGBTQIA back then. And what they were fascinated with was you had so many people in one room, and you had these 3 queens on stage. But when you look around that room, there was people like Kate, God have mercy on her. There was Karen. There was groups of friends from work. There was loads of gays, loads of lesbians, and everybody just had that amazing, wonderful Sunday. Can't wait to have to get Sunday Bing shot. Do you remember you used to queue down the street?
Yeah.
And they used to have to put the ropes up, and you used to say to people, "If you're going out there
I
for a
was
smoke."
part of that regular audience. I was there in the queue. I was like, me
so
and
you were, love?
Princess Sunset were there from about 5 o'clock every Sunday.
Right.
We were there before happy hour would start, so we could get our £2 drinks, which they were back then.
Wow.
It was £2 a drink during happy hour between 7 and 9. We were down super early. I think I spoke before about, you know, us being the obnoxious people that would block the door where the staff couldn't get by, because we literally were right. We wanted to be first in the queue to get in, to get a seat, because it mattered to us. Like, that was our ritual. Like, that was our Sunday night out.
It was gay church, basically.
It was. It really was.
100%. And as you mentioned, you know, you guys had your regulars. You had Wee Kate. You had they were like, we were like a small community, like, that were going out
within the Sunday Bingo show.
Yeah. So your point about it being gay church couldn't be a truer statement. It was like, we were the congregation.
You were religious.
We were there every single week, waiting to see what you guys were going to churn out.
Yeah,
you know. So it's
A part of it became very much then your younger, like maturing DNA. Oh my God, my gay lip. This is it. This is brilliant. I'm surrounded by drag queens and they're my friends and it's on all of that. But for us working on stage, I didn't think it was that. To me, I was so happy to be there, to be a part of it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
There was such an innocence in our regard to that, because it was really just what we all individually felt that we wanted to do and be part of. And in that innocence, we managed to create something that I think now when we look back, we go, oh wow, that was a lot bigger than probably what I realised at the time.
Yeah.
You know, we were all just trying to have a platform to be creative in our own show, and a bit of drag delusion of, well, I am a superstar, so I need a stage. So,
we were all the same, love.
You know?
Here, Glenn, what I want to ask you a wee question. If you could name one of your favourite Sunday Bingo show performances, which one would it be?
So I have a couple, and I've already thought about this in preparation for this
hold
episode.
My hoops. I'm not going to be in. I'm not going to be in this.
There are a couple that stand out for me.
He's going to say Bunny, isn't he? Or Felicity.
Be wild.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I'm only joking. So, okay, first of all, the one that stands out for me of all time is actually You Pair. And it was the time that you've done the Millennium episode of Gimme, Gimme, Gimme.
Yeah.
That, honestly, I still watch that video back on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's got thousands of views, and I'm pretty sure they're all me.
Yeah.
I watched that video back so fondly, and I laugh at it so much.
Remember my big orange cat?
It's just
no.
like,
we were them. I was Tom and you were Linda.
Yeah.
But 100%, the characters, you know, that, I mean, it's a very funny show anyway, right?
Yes.
But the way that you guys portrayed that, and I appreciate it was a lip sync, and you were on stage and you were I think you had like the keyboard that you had from memory was an actual keyboard off a computer, which didn't make any sense, but it was just madness, and it was the funniest thing. And I'd seen that episode beforehand, but I laughed my leg off at that.
And that's just one of that goes to show you that we had that so good. But Trudy said,
do you remember the rehearsal for that?
Yeah.
Me and her couldn't get through it without laughing. Like, she would pull a face or I would do something.
Yeah.
And the pair of us would corpse. And I was genuinely worried that I would just start laughing during the lip sync of it, because it's a full scene. It's like 5-6 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
For the benefit of our listeners, I will put a link to that in the description of this episode, so you can have a look and go and find it.
Yeah.
And it was the whole, look at me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm in distress.
I am Caris from Catalonia.
Yeah. And she brought the teddy bears out the way Linda does in the scene and everything. And,
I'm assembling my team.
Something cheap.
Oh, it's that deathbed, what you call her.
I can't remember her name.
So the other one that stood out for me, Tina, was the one that you had done, which was Feed the Birds. And this is where you come out, I think it was from Julie Andrews or something, like that Sound of Music or something, and you had loaves of bread, and you come out and you started throwing it into the audience.
And then I had a chicken in the bag.
But as you threw the bread out, then towards the end of the song, it turned into just a massive food fight. Now, I'd never seen that before, and that honestly killed me. I was in a wrinkle. Like, that was, and those are the kind of conversations.
One of the old classics.
We were going back into the office on Monday, because again, like, I was working in an office at the time, and going into the office and going, oh my God, you'll never guess what I seen yesterday. Like, you're sort of describing this to people, and they're going, you're having a laugh. That just wouldn't happen. And I'm going, no, seriously, an actual food fight happened in the bar while we're watching a show. You know,
the first one was sporadic. Somebody threw the bread back at you, and because you're you and Freddy bastard was like, oh, fucking right, so you threw it back, and then it was just a sea of just slices of bread coming back at you from the audience,
and then I was trying to throw it back again, but I was throwing it like I was in a rat. Forgetting that I was squishing it up into a ball. No, that's fucking right.
So as you know, we asked our listeners to sort of get in touch in preparation for this episode, and just as we're on the subject of favourite routines,
right?
So Gary Adams, that's my husband, by the way. He's on Instagram.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, Gary. Gladys.
He actually touched on a couple of things that he remembered.
Oh, right.
So the very first time that Paris Hilton now Jomber's Blonde,
Yes.
RuPaul alumni. Her doing Lady Gaga, Just Dance. Now that song hadn't been released in the UK yet.
Yeah.
So we remember watching that going, I love this song.
Yeah.
This is amazing, and she's performing
Jomber's
it.
had the look and all for it.
Yeah.
As well.
Your performance, Trudy, of Circus with your backup dancers.
Yes.
And there was another time that stood out is when you fell off the stage during a performance, Trudy.
It's happened a couple of times.
She had a wobble.
One of my favourite songs of Bette Midler's is a song called Shiver My Timbers. And this is again coming back to this thing of I don't care, we're going to make it happen. So I had envisaged a swing and me in a sailor outfit. So I was like, yeah, sure, get a swing. And I got the swing, done it one time, and I was right above people's heads, swinging over the audience and everything else. And it was a wee couple of months later, I thought, I'm going to do that again. I loved it. The swing broke and I completely fell like a sack of potatoes on my arse. And I was raging because the song's so emotive, but the audience were just in hysterics, which add insult to injury. I was so annoyed.
Talk about shivering the timbers.
Yeah.
Timber.
It's like I broke my left hip bone there.
What about you guys, Tina? From your point of view, is there a song or performance that stood out for you?
I'm going to whack myself laughing here.
Go for it.
It's not even a song or a performance. Do you remember your mom?
Johnny? Oh my God, I knew you were going to talk about this.
So,
oh my
this
God.
new stage manager came to work at the Sunday bingo show. I don't want to ruin it by laughing, right? And Trudy and I and Portia were in the shoe factory. And he had like a speech impediment, right?
You had arrived first.
Yeah.
We were told there was a new stage manager. So by this stage, the show has a full production team. There's somebody in spotlight. There's a stage manager.
Yeah.
There's so many different elements to it. But we've got a new stage manager that we haven't met.
And he met me and he went to me,
hello, my name's Johnny.
and I went, oh, hi, you Johnny. How are you? I'm Tina. And then he went to Trudy.
I had arrived after this, and this bitch, again, looking at me, and I'm going, right, I know something's up here, but I can't place what it is yet. Have you met our new stage manager, Trudy? And I went, no. And he went, hiya, my name's Johnny. And I was like, oh, hiya, Johnny. And she's looking at me, and she's going, like, egging me to laugh to break. And I was keeping a straight face. And the next thing was, I get back in behind her wee curtain. Here's me, you're a fucking bitch. I go, what is going on? And she was like, that's the way he talks. Right?
Portia comes
Portia, of course, who then walks in and she baits out from behind the curtain, does the same thing to Portia. She goes, Portia, come on and meet our new stage manager, Johnny. And Johnny goes, hiya, Portia, I'm Johnny. And Portia goes straight back. I can't do it. Hiya, Johnny, I'm Portia, right? And then Johnny continues to talk with his voice, and she realizes as she's talking like that with him, right? And she starts to go, yes, yes, lovely. Goes back into her own voice, slow transitioning, because she's realized. And then them two being in behind the curtain. I'm hearing all this all from the other side, and we were in behind the curtain, go, trying not to laugh. It was
one of the
God.
funniest moments that has carried me for many, many years through many, many difficult times. And although there's been so many different, I can't put my finger on one performance that we have ever done. Yeah. I just think the magic of, from the start of the Sunday bingo show, Get Your Cards Right, Parliament, Cube, Mint, that whole bubble was a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is my pinnacle moment of a performance, of comedy, of sheer and utter innocence.
Have people told you what their favourite performances are? Because people have told me some of the ones they love for me, but then I have a different experience. What I felt was, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, they haven't actually.
One, I'll tell you, I love yours.
Wow.
Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
That fucking mix.
Miles don't. I know the one you're talking about.
Tresson Supreme.
Tresson Supreme.
Never. Who the fuck are you? Get away from my car.
Come back to bed, babe. Get away from me, you loser. I'm cleaning my air conditioner.
Please.
So,
he was
I would love to hear that mix again because it was chaotic as fuck. The whole premise of it was the tuna started off normal and then it went up an octave with the more line of coke that she took. So she ended up, she was covered in baking flour or whatever.
Actually, you done that not that long ago at a Drags to Riches performance. Do you remember in the last couple of months?
I would pay to hear that.
It was very funny.
The very first time I'd done it in Gran Canaria was about a year ago, and they were saying to me, "So what's Tina? What's Tristan Supreme?" And I was like, "You just have to watch it.
Tristan Supreme, try it."
I tell you one thing, I cannot do this much longer. And it started, and it was like, what's she doing?
What is going on here?
And then it went into the real crazy, messy, and then by the end of it, it was chaotic, and I was covered in brackets, cocaine, flour,
ice and sugar. We discovered one time because she was using flour and the flour congealed in her mouth and she couldn't do the rest of the song.
And I couldn't.
So
I choked.
We figured ice and sugar's the one. If you're doing cocaine as a performance, ice and sugar.
Ice and sugar is the way to go.
Top tip.
Swear to God. But yeah, Tristan Supreme probably is one of my favorite things to do. And
I loved watching it. It was just hilarious.
A wee
and
masterpiece.
It never, ever failed to make people wild.
So it was one of the things I have to say this to Trudy. Trudy, I remember it was way back. It was a Christmas show. It's another moment. And we were getting ready for the Christmas show, and you done South Park.
Oh, it was the Cartman. Cartman.
You were on your knees on the stage going,
Do you know what I remember about that? Because the where the stage was, I remember this now.
I didn't want to work. I wanted to watch it.
I was on stage, but she was watching to the side, and her big laugh. So I started laughing during the performance because I could hear her laughing at me, and it was making me or break character.
This video again is actually on YouTube.
Oh, is it
really?
Is,
yeah.
Oh,
I think
please.
the video's there. If it's not the video, I definitely have pictures of it.
Right.
Girls, I'm really sorry, and I know that we're in a flow, but
Wow.
we've run out of time for this episode.
What? Oh, no, I feel like I'm only getting started.
We've run out of time for this episode, but do not despair because this will roll into a two-parter. So what we'll do is for our Patreons, we'll put the second part of this up straight away.
Right.
And for those people that aren't on Patreon, why not? So if you'd like to support the podcast, then please consider joining us on Patreon. For the cost of a drink per month, you can listen to podcasts early, get access to exclusive digital content, and discounts to G&T shows. Membership tiers start from free, with paid membership starting at £3, £4 and £5 per month, with each tier offering increased benefits. Your support really helps us
You're
keep
doing amazing, sweetie.
Your support helps us keep the conversations flowing, so join us at www.patreon.com/GNT pod. Well, until next time, Miss Legs, Miss Scrumptious, it's been fabulous.
Divine.
Or as I've been saying, it's cracker.
Cracker short.
Until next time.
Demure.
Very demure, very mindful.
Trudy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Toodles.
We will continue conversation, as I said, in the second part. So until next time.
Chin chin.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of G&T Sips and Giggles. If you've enjoyed our conversation, then don't forget to share it with your friends, and why not subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Your reviews mean the world to us and really help others find the show, so please take a moment to leave one, but be kind. If you'd like to support the podcast, why not consider joining us on Patreon? For the cost of a drink a month, you can listen to episodes early, access exclusive digital content, and get discounts to upcoming G&T shows. Your support helps us keep the conversation flowing. Cheers! We'll see you next time. Chin chin!